The latest reports by NACADA on drug usage in Kenya show that 1 in every 6 Kenyans between the ages of 15 to 65 use drugs. It is indeed an alarming reality. However, it is exhilarating to see former addicts turn a new leaf and choose to live a life drug-free and build a community of other recovering addicts who are also on their journeys. CASA Media reached out to one Kimberly Chesaina, a lady who I like to call the Heroine hero. We set out to understand her why. My name is Miss Kahira, and here is her story.
So I go to the beach, I meet a Mzungu guy, but I could tell this man is definitely on drugs because he didn't look like your normal European here on holiday. He looked very disheveled, burnt, he looked like a lobster. He just looked, things are going bad. I would buy weed, I would even buy alcohol. I never liked alcohol, but I would sell it in school because I would fit it under my bra. Like I would put a whole 750 ml in my bra. Oh my gosh. And at the time I was using cocaine and ecstasy. Ecstasy I had picked up along the way as well. And I really was abusing the ecstasy. For a normal person, a pill should take you through 24 hours, but I needed about 6 pills in a night. I started with a quarter pill, but now it was 6 pills in a night and a gram of cocaine, and Kim is good. My name is Kimberly Chelimo Kika Bastonjo Chesaina. I am 36 years old. Where was I born? I think I was born in Kapenguria. But there's always this dispute in the family where my mom says it was Kisumu, my dad says it's Kapenguria, so I'm not sure which. I'm going to go with Kapenguria today. So I had a normal childhood. My early years, I can't remember obviously, but from when I can remember, probably from the age of 5 or 6, I just remember really fun childhood, I would just be riding around in cars. My mom would always make the most beautiful birthday cakes for us, me and my sister. We're only 2 years apart, so you can imagine we're like twins, so we would dress the same, it was really fun. And I came from a big family. We're about 8 kids in total. For my mom, there's 4. For my stepmom, there's 3. And we adopted one of my cousins. So the house was always full, and there was always full of life and laughter. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, so I constantly had a parent around who was just pouring love into us. And it was an easy childhood. I don't recall any problems. I don't recall any lack or anything like that. I think issues began for me when I joined year 1. And this was when my early primary. I went to a school in the coast, and it wasn't so welcoming to Black kids. So I think that's when I started feeling rejection, isolation, fear, and all of that. So those feelings, obviously, for a little child who doesn't know how to articulate them well, it turns into anger, and, it affects your behavior as well. So I started becoming very mischievous, if it was somebody's birthday, and they have their gifts maybe in the classroom and it's break time and everyone's out at break, I would go back to the classroom, open up the cupboard where the gifts are, and just take something, not even to benefit myself, but just to throw it somewhere, because I think envy played a part as well. I saw other kids and how they would fit in, European kids, and how happy they were. And I never had friends during break time, and so it was like anger as well. So I would do those little things, kleptomania, and, get in trouble with the teachers in school. They're always calling my mom. My mom couldn't understand what it was because I couldn't go home and say, Mom, I can't play with the other kids. They don't want to play with me. My birthday parties would come around and no one would show up. I remember there was only one birthday party that 2 people showed up. One was the teacher's kid, so she had to be there. And one was this Indian guy called Pal. Thank you, Pal. And then when I would go to birthday parties, like for the colored kids or the white kids, I always felt different. I always felt other, I would never be involved. The parents were not nice to me like they were to the other kids. So I always felt like there was something wrong with me. There's something, I'm dirty or I'm not good enough. And I think finally, maybe in year 6, I think my mom started to realize there's actually a problem. And that was actually one of the toughest years for me, I think at the age of 12, because that was the same year that I experienced molestation. It happened in the village. I'd gone there with my family for the Christmas time. And one of the workers actually molested me. And it really affected me being a kid. It really did, because I felt like this is now just stamping on my dirtiness. Like it's a certification. It's like I've graduated on, you're just a horrible kid. Nobody likes you. You're dirty, you're disgusting. So those feelings were part of me, and I carried them into my adolescence, and I became a very, in front of people, I was able to be very involved, like my family. It was very hard for them to even realize that there is something wrong. I was very cheerful. I was an extrovert, I was always happy, I was laughing, but inside I was crumbling, 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 crumbling. And when I joined high school, I think I was about 14 years old, I got suspended as well, and it was something involving a boy. And so my parents were also like, what the heck is going on with this kid? I never used to get in trouble at all. I was an A student, I was always very honest and truthful. So I think this is when the problems started showing themselves, and I started becoming very antisocial. I wanted to only wear black clothes, I wanted to shave my hair into a mohawk, and I was also cutting myself. I would take the compass out of the mathematical set, and I would cut myself, and I would cut myself. Now, as a psychologist, I do understand it was like an outlet for my pain. I had so much emotional pain inside of me, and it was like a bubbling volcano ready to blow. So if I could transfer this pain to my physical body, maybe that would alleviate some of it. And it gave me relief at the time. And so that was my childhood. When I joined a new school after my suspension, my mother took me to boarding school, and I thought, okay, I'm going to start afresh. I'm going to be a new me, everything from my past, kleptomania, being suspended for boys and whatnot, that's in my past. I'm done. But unfortunately, at this time, I already started smoking marijuana. So if we rewind a little bit, when I was 12 years old, when all of these horrible things were going on in my life, being molested and whatnot, and the third, I went to the coast, and I was on holiday there, and I was hanging out with some of my older cousins, and we went to a kiosk that was right opposite this club called Bob's, right behind a petrol station. And my cousin went, and she asked for a sigara kubwa. I was smoking cigarettes, but because a family member was smoking around us, and so I had access to cigarettes, so I would steal the cigarettes the same age, the age of 12, and I would smoke. So when my cousin was talking about a sigara kubwa, I was like, I know cigarettes, what is a sigara kubwa, So I kept pestering her, can I try some, can you give me some? So when she gave me to try, I remember I had a very bad experience, to be honest. I had an out-of-body experience. I had, like, time wasn't moving like it was supposed to. I felt like hours were jumping ahead or jumping behind. I was really confused, right? But what I remember was just feeling good. Like, there was a part of me that felt good. I felt like I'd escaped my reality. I was in another world, right? So that I bookmarked that feeling in my brain. So what had happened is, when I came back to Nairobi, when I came to the city, we had workers in the house who lived in Kawangware. So I started pestering them also, and toa kitu kidogo. So I'd go over and give somebody, like give one of them 500 bob or a grand, and tell them, please nilete sigara kubwa, and they would bring it for me, because as much as they were working in the house and I was such a little kid, I looked really big for my age. At the age of 12, I probably looked like a 15 or a 16-year-old. So they were okay with it, they didn't want, and I was a trustworthy person from a very young age. Actually, it's funny, my father always says, I know when my kid is using drugs is when she's being very dishonest. So this carried on, obviously. This carried on into even the new boarding school that I've been transferred to. So when I get to this boarding school, I'm trying to be brand new, right? I'm trying to be this new person. But I'm still addicted to the marijuana. It still gives me so much relief. So I didn't know where to get marijuana in this boarding school, right? So a few terms into my stay in the boarding school, I decided, you know what, I'm going to start carrying the marijuana. So the worker would bring the marijuana from Kawangware. I would pack it into my suitcases. Now that I've gotten used to the school, and I know the system, and I know the matrons, and I would go with the weed to school, and I would sell some I would sell a stick for maybe 100 bob to the international kids, smoke some. And later on, when I got to my A levels, when I was about 17 or 18, one of my classmates, he was a British boy, and he would always come to school and brag about how his mom is a cokehead and my mom uses a lot of cocaine, and he was from Naivasha. So I'd always dare him and tell him, why don't you bring some? You're lying. Bring some. You're lying. You bring some. You're lying. So finally, one term he came with the cocaine and he found me the art room and he told me, hey, let's do a line. So I did a line and I felt so good. But it was so unsustainable because where are we going to get cocaine again? You're not going to go rob your mom. We're in the school. Where it's during term. So I just sustained myself with the marijuana, and during our A levels, we'd get to go into Nakuru town. I think it was every Saturday. The A2 kids would go into town for 3 hours and you could do your shopping and come back. So when I would go into town, I would buy weed. I would even buy alcohol. I never liked alcohol, but I would sell it in school because I would fit it under my bra. Like I would put a whole 750 ml in my bra. So I'd go back to school and I would sell it and I would be smoking weed, and it was just nice. And obviously at this time, my grades are going down. I'm no longer an A student. I'm hanging in there with C's and D's. My parents know there's something wrong, but I told you we come from a very big family, and I was so good at manipulation. I was so good at lying. I was so good at charming people and saying, oh, it's this and it's that, and really distracting people from what the actual problem is. So my parents, I just look at it like maybe she's just a teenage girl and she's just going through her own thing, but they never really imagined drug. Because with marijuana, you can really mask it well. It doesn't really degrade you physically at all. Maybe certain signs are burnt out fingers here, you have brown marks, or your lips, but there's no shouting symptom, right? So I could get away with it. Then I had to go to university. This was the time one of my parents was very terminally ill, and I was fighting back and forth. I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay and be with my parent. But you can imagine the African parent. You have to go. Your life has to go on. You have to go to school and study university. So I was sent over to South Africa to study with my sister in Johannesburg. So when I got there, the first thing I wanted was marijuana. The first thing. I remember I went to orientation and I'm trying to find where can I get weed. So I spotted the group of druggies, let me say that, we have a certain look, so I go over there and I explain to them, hey, woo, I want this item. They say, okay, come back to our dorm room, right? I think a couple of them had already been in the uni. They were probably second years or third years. So when they invite me back to their dorm room, we're smoking marijuana, but it's not like the Kenyan marijuana. It's like way different. It's all different strains. It's seedless. They have all these cool Rizzlers, pink Rizzlers, bubble gum, whatnot. I was like, what? They had like grinders. They had like bongs. I was like, what? I'm in paradise. For a drug addict, it's paradise. And I could see on the desk next to me, a couple of Australians, their accents are so heavy, they were doing lines on the table. And so immediately my brain was like, wait, do you remember when we did a line back in the day in school? It was so good. So I went over to the table and I asked them, hey, can I have a line? Can I have a couple of lines? And the first time, when a person is sharing their drugs with you, they're so generous. Have. But after the first time, you will have to buy. So that night, I used a ton of cocaine and it was absolutely great. But this next day, when I had to go and ask, hey, can I have another line? It was money. It is 200 Rand. So I'm looking at the budget I've been put under by my parents, and the budget is not working out, After I pay my rent, after I get to school, after I feed myself, I'm literally left with nothing. Like students were always so broke. So I had to think, how am I going to afford this cocaine? How am I going to afford my drug addiction? So I stopped going to classes. I stopped buying books. I decided to move in with a boyfriend there in South Africa so I don't have to pay rent. And on the days I couldn't afford the cocaine, I would buy a drug called Tick, which now I understand it to be crystal meth. So I was using. This was, I used every single day. Days when I had no money at all, I would smoke marijuana. And how I would make sure, or we would make sure we constantly have a supply of drugs is we'd move in packs. We would live like in a group home, basically. People would come over to my boyfriend's house when I had money. When I was broke, I'd go over to that friend's house and they would buy the drugs when they're broke. We'd just be moving, boom, 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 boom. And I never went to classes. I think I went to maybe 2 or 3 lectures and 1 tutorial. The whole 3 to 4 years I was in SA. And it got so serious because I was losing so much weight. You know, now I'm on hard drugs. I'm losing so much weight. My skin is darkening. My eyes are sunken, to the point my boyfriend that I was staying with really panicked one night. I was having an overdose, and he reached out to my sister, who had already flown back to Kenya. She already graduated. And my sister asked my sister for my parents' number and told my parent, your kid is gonna die. You must come and get your kid. So my mom actually flew down to Johannesburg with my little brother. One day I wake up, my mom's outside the door. Chelimo, we're going back right now. I know it's drugs. But being the charmer that I am and the manipulator, addicts are skilled manipulators. I managed to, convince my mom that, oh, wait, no, let me just finish this CAT exams I have coming up and whatnot, and then I'll come back home. So fortunate my mom went back, but unfortunately for me, she passed away before I managed to get back. So now I'm not going back to be lectured about drugs. Now I'm going back for a funeral. So again, I escape, this prosecution, this, how can I explain? I escaped this trial. I felt like I was going back to be put on trial. So now it's shadowed, it's distracted by this funeral. So actually, when I was flying back, I was so traumatized. I got a call, it was 7 p.m. at night. I was fighting with my boyfriend for telling my mom everything, and we're going to KFC to have like our final meeting. And I get the call, and I remember I just called my drug dealer and told him I need grams, and I had just gotten my allowance like 3 days earlier, so I had enough money. So I go back to the house. I invite a couple of friends over. My boyfriend knew, but I had kicked him out already. I told him, leave. I want to be by myself. Called a bunch of friends over. We're all drinking. My family's trying to reach me. I've put my phone on silent. I'm just snorting a lot of drugs. So I don't even know how they figured out where I actually live. I was staying in a place called Roemsik in Rudaport. But one of my cousins just show up. No, actually, two of my cousins show up and they're like, Chelimo, your flight is at 12:40 midnight. We have to get to Tambo. And it was probably like 9. So this rush of me getting ready to go to the airport, I just took the drugs and I put them in my bra, right? So we're in the car, we are heading to Tambo, we get to the airport. My cousin is busy telling all the guys, like, listen, this person has lost their parent. Please be gentle with her. Please make sure she goes through all the places, everything. So when I get on the flight, I had completely forgotten I even have drugs. I get on the flight, I'm ordering whiskey. Finally, I feel like I want to go take a wee. As I go to the washroom, I just felt myself and I felt this plastic and I panicked. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I look at the toilet, I'm like, should I flush? But then in hindsight, I know there's no drugs in Kenya. At the time, I had no idea there were any drugs in Kenya. I just thought it's a basic marijuana. And at the time, Shash had come in. That's around 2011. So Shash was the big thing, this weed from Ethiopia. But no hard drugs. I never heard of any hard drugs. So I made a decision to keep them. I made a decision, I will keep it. Let me keep it. So I go back on the flight. I even forget my mom has passed on. Now I'm just praying. I'm just like, please let me get there. Please let me get there safe. Let me make it to the house. Please let there not be any anti-narcotics or whatever at the airport or sniffer dogs or whatever. So I finally get to the airport and I thank God that I just got rushed out. I think I hardly even went through like the customs and everything. I think I just was taken off the tarmac. So I wasn't really searched and nothing really serious happened, and I got through with my drug. So the 2 weeks when we're planning for my mother's funeral and all of this is going on, I was high as a kite. I remember attending my mother's funeral. Everyone is in black or suited up, looking very neat and very serious. And I was in a full red outfit, like full red, like a red suit with a red hat. And I was jumping all over the place, laughing. And I think that's when my parents and immediate family started to realize that, wait, there could be a problem here. Like, she's not sleeping, she's not crying. What is happening? But because I only had drugs for those few weeks, they were bound to end. So when it ended, I had a very low. At the time, I didn't understand how drugs, withdrawals, all of these things. I just remember feeling super depressed. I thought it was my mom. I thought even feeling physically sick was just finally the death hitting me, Even my family were like, oh, finally it's hitting her. So the whole, is she on drugs? Is she not on drugs? Was forgotten about. So now I'm about 22. I'm in the country and all I have is marijuana. So I just kept on smoking marijuana. But I started going out to Electric Avenue, like Westlands and whatnot, in the third, and hanging out with friends and drinking. And I was always in the clubs, Monday through Monday. So in that harakati, as they say, I met with this dude. And how I met him is I was going into a club in Westlands, and we went all the way upstairs to the VIP, and there was a back table. So I kept noticing that this guy is doing something. His head keeps hitting the table and going up, right? His head keeps, and it's really dark. You can imagine a club. So my confidence, I just went up to him and said, "Hey, listen, do you have cocaine?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, have a line." I told you, it's very friendly the first time. So I took his number, we became friends, and it became cocaine, cocaine, cocaine. And I was running my mom's company at the time. So I was able to just get money. I was making maybe 40 to 50,000 a day. I'm not paying rent. I'm not buying food. I don't need this money for nothing. I have a car. So it was so easy for me to just keep the addiction going. All of that came to a halt when my parent realized that, wait, this money is ruining this kid, right? So hold on, this business, we're going to close it for the meantime. And you need to figure out which school are you going to, because are you going back to South Africa? What are you doing? So because I knew I did nothing in South Africa, and the death of my parents sort of like covered that whole thing for me, I decided to pretend to be such an altruist and say, I want to look after my younger brothers, and I want to stay in Kenya, and I'll go to school in Kenya. So he told me, enroll, go to USA, go to something. So I would enroll to these universities. I'd feel so bad. My parents would pay, but I would never go. So dad is telling me, you have to go to school. Tell you have to go to school. What are you doing with your life? I told you I come from a big family, and all my siblings are like overachievers, and I'm the one who's like stuck, So he's like trying to move me along. Can you do something? So I would enroll to these units. I would go to USIU. I went to IIT College. I went to Kenya Institute of Management. I even went to, I think, a fashion school. So it was always my father would pay. 6 months, 1 year into the school, I'd come back and say, actually, I don't want to do this course. The teachers don't like me. It's too far away. Woo. And then pick another course. And all the while, I'm just using a lot of drugs, because my parent was working in a faraway place at the time. So he would just send me a lot of pocket money and allowances and, money for the car. I need to service the car. I need to do this. So it was just fueling my habit. And I had my own apartment in Lavington. So I would just bring people over to the apartment to party. And if it's not my apartment, it's my boyfriend's apartment. So I would always move in packs. What I was doing in South Africa, I just did in Kenya. Just move in packs. Go to Mombasa, Naivasha. They would call us the Subaru boys or something. Just moving around, And so finally, I went to the coast. It was a holiday. I remember we booked a cottage. And oh my gosh. And at the time, I was using cocaine and ecstasy. Ecstasy I had picked up along the way as well. And I really was abusing the ecstasy. For a normal person, a pill should take you through 24 hours, but I needed about 6 pills in a night. I started with a quarter pill, but now it was 6 pills in a night and a gram of cocaine, and Kim is good. Without this, I don't feel right. My body is sick. And, that's a lot of money in a day. And so the friends I was hanging out with are, kids of politicians. My parent left me 5 houses in Lavington. I just collect the rent, European people. So if I don't have the money, they have the money, So we go to the coast one time, it's December holidays, and we book a cottage, and we're going there. We're like a group of 10 or 15. And when we get there, I want cocaine, my friends want cocaine. So I go to the beach, I meet a Mzungu guy, but I could tell this man is definitely on drugs because he didn't look like your normal European here on holiday. He looked very disheveled, burnt, he looked like a lobster. He just looked, things are going bad. So I went over to him and I asked him, hey, can I get some cocaine in Diani? I don't know Diani too. And he's like, yes, give me money. I bring you now. He was a French dude. So I gave him 5,000 bob thinking I'm going to get a gram. But he comes back with all these sachets, like wrapped in these silver, I don't know if you know these cigarette boxes, they have these silver sheets of paper. So it was wrapped, many, many packets. So I was like, what type of cocaine is this? And then when I open it, it's it's not pure white as cocaine is and crystal. It's like tinged, it's like brownish in a way. So I was like, what is this? And he's like, yo, this is cocaine. It was packed in with majani and just hurriedly telling me, and he's asking me, can I have 2 sachets too? So I gave him. So I'm used to sniffing cocaine. Cocaine is usually inhaled through the nostrils. So that's what I did immediately. I just rolled up a note, 1,000 bob note, and I inhaled. And I remember my boyfriend came running to the beach. He was telling me I passed out. I don't remember passing out. I woke up feeling very nauseous. I wanted to vomit, but I felt so good. I felt I've never felt so good in my life, you know. They relate the heroin high to maybe 1,000 orgasms, like 1,000 orgasms happening at the same time. So I was like, whoop-de woo, this is it. I felt like I was dying. I felt like my body was shutting down. My skin was on fire. I felt as if I couldn't even see. My eyesight was so blurry. I couldn't focus. Sounds kept going in and out, like it was like I had an amplifier in my ear. So I called the guy who usually brings me marijuana. So when he sent the 1,000 bob, he came with the kettle, and the minute I sniffed, I was good. Immediately, like in 3 seconds.